What's good, family? All right, this is a short one. Super short. I'm just getting into it and I'm out. Like, I know I've said that before. You know what I mean? Thank you, She's Still My Thunder. Appreciate you, She's Still My Thunder. Appreciate you. Let me know if you can hear me. If you can't, then let me know that as well. Okay, so let me get into this. So, Black Let's Go episode 8 is featuring W.B. Du Bois. Okay, all right. So, I'm about to really get into it about his story. This is really quick and fast. I haven't really sent the link out to anybody, so ain't nobody's really watching, which is cool. Y'all can watch the replay. Thanks for the support. I appreciate it. All right. Now, W.E.B. Du Bois, right? Let me get my music on real quick. Let me get my music on, because I like to have a little music in the background. I mean, it helps to set the mood, All right. Here we go. Turn it down just a little bit. Perfect. Now, that being said, okay, you can hear me. Perfect. All right. William Edward Bouchard Du Bois, also known as W.E.B. Du Bois, born February 23rd, 1868 through August 27th, 1963, was an American sociologist, socialist historian, and Pan-Africanist civil rights activist. Born in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, Du Bois grew up in a relatively tolerant and integrated community. After completing graduate work at the University of Berlin and Harvard University, he was the first African American to earn a doctorate. He became a professor of history, sociology, and economics at Atlanta University. Du Bois was one of the founders of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, in 1909. Wow. Okay, one of the founders. Perfect. Early Du Bois had risen to national prominence as a leader of the Niagara Movement, a group of African American activists who wanted. She says, I feel bad. I should be doing something for Black History Month. It's all good, family. You can always come up here and join me if you want. You know what I mean? Whenever I'm on and you have time, come on up. You know what I mean? I dropped the link for you. It's no problem. Equal rights for blacks. Du Bois and his supporters opposed the Atlanta Compromise, an agreement crafted by Booker T. Washington. He might get covered on Black as Gold. You never know. Which provided that Southern blacks would work and submit to white political rule. While Southern whites guaranteed that blacks would receive basic educational and economic opportunities, instead, Du Bois insisted on full civil rights and increased political representation, which he believed would be brought about by the African American intellectual elite. Intellectual. There you go. No pun intended. He referred to this group as the talented tenth, a concept under the umbrella of racial uplift, and believed that African Americans needed the chances for advanced education to develop its leadership. Racism was the main target of Du Bois' polemic, and he strongly protested against lynching, Jim Crow laws, and discrimination in education and employment. His cause included people of color everywhere, particularly Africans and Asians in colonies. Salute the Big Rig Slaps. Thanks for showing up, bro. Appreciate you. You know what I mean? If y'all ain't checking y'all Easily Rigs last night, not your relationships, you surely missed out. You know what I mean? We all came through, and y'all had a great show, man. Thank y'all for putting that on, Be Easy. Big Rigs. Big Rigs and Be Easy both put that on. Appreciate y'all both, brother. He was a proponent of Pan-Africanism and helped organize several Pan-African Congress to fight for the independence of African colonies from European powers. Du Bois made several trips to Europe, Africa, and Asia. After World War I, he surveyed the experiences of African black soldiers in France and documented widespread prejudice and racism in the United States military, which goes on a lot. You know what I mean? Oh, most definitely, brother. Most definitely. Salute to you, man. Du Bois was a prolific author. His collection of essays, The Souls of Black Folk, is a seminal work in African American culture. In the 1935 magnum opus, Black Reconstruction in America, challenged the prevailing unorthodoxy that blacks were responsible for the failures of the Reconstruction era. Borrowing a phrase from Frederick Douglass, he popularized the use of the term color line to represent the injustice of the separate but equal doctrine prevalent in American social and political life. He opens the souls of black folk with a central thesis of much of his life's work. The problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. His 1940 autobiography, Dusk of Dawn, is regarded in part as one of the first scientific treatises in the field of American sociology, and he published 2 other life stories. All 3 contain essays on sociology, politics, and history. And as well as editor of the NAACP's Journal of the Crisis, he published many influential pieces. Du Bois believed that capitalism was a primary cause of racism, and he was generally sympathetic to socialist causes throughout his life. He was an ardent peace activist and advocated nuclear disarmament. The United States Civil Rights Act, embodying many of the reforms for which Du Bois had campaigned his entire life, was enacted a year after his death. Wow. Okay. Because he lived until 63. Okay. Then he was 95 years old. Wow, he had a full life. Okay. So I'm gonna get into early life. All right, gotta get into his childhood. Okay. Then let's see. And I'm gonna get into the NAACP era. Those are the only two things I'm gonna cover. Okay. And even in that, right, you know how I do. I'm gonna skip around. Now in his life, right? Let me give you some highlights. All right. So y'all know. Okay, because I'm like I said, I'm gonna keep it real brief. Now, he went to Atlanta University, okay? And that happened in 1897 of July, right? July 1897. Also, let me outline some more details about W.E.B. Du Bois. Okay? He returned to Atlanta, you know what I mean, in 1931. All right. Doesn't say what month, but he returned in 1931. Okay. He was a part of the United Nations. You know what I mean? Had some work, for the, throughout the Cold War. Also, he did some peace activism. He was involved in some things with the FBI. You know what I mean? McCarthyism in the trial. All right. He had some runners with the Communist Party as well. You know what I'm saying? And he transcended into Africa. All right. Some highlights from his personal life. You know what I mean? He was close friends with Joe Springer. You know what I mean? He was a definitely influential character. And he was married his wife Shirley Du Bois in 1951. All right, and they stayed together all the way to the point where he wasn't, where he transcended basically. All right. He fought for voting in 1889. All right. So he did a lot of different things. Okay. A lot of different things throughout his life. Now, like I said, I'm gonna keep it brief because I'm only gonna cover, his childhood, and I'm gonna cover the NAACP era. Okay. Those are two that I'm gonna cover in full. All right, I'm gonna read both of these in full. All right. Shout out to Twin, aka Quantum Love. Quantum Love, what up? What up? You know what I mean? Big Rick gave her a shout out as well. All right, let me go back. Okay. Where am I at? Okay, early life, family and childhood. Let's get it. William Edward Bogart Du Bois was born on February 23rd, 1868 in Great Barrington, Massachusetts to Alfred and Mary Sylvia Du Bois. Mary Sylvia Bogart's family was part of the very small free-black population of Great Barrington and had long owned land in the state. She was descended from Dutch, African, and English ancestors. Okay, everybody else giving each other shout-outs and all that. William Du Bois' maternal great-great-grandfather was Tom Bogart, a slave born in West Africa around 1730, who was held by the Dutch colonist Conrad Bogart. Tom briefly served in the Continental Army during the American Revolutionary War, which may have been how he gained his freedom during the late 18th century. His son Jack Bogart was the father of Othello Bogart, who turned in was the father of Mary Sylvia Bogart. William Du Bois claimed Elizabeth Freeman as his relative, whether she had married his great-grandfather Jack Bogart. But Freeman was 20 years older than Bogart, and no record of such a marriage has been found. It may have been Freeman's daughter, Bessie Humphrey, who married Bogart after her first husband, Jonah Humphrey, left the area around 1811 after Bogart's first wife transcended in 1810. And so Freeman would have been William Du Bois' step-great-great-grandmother. Anecdotal evidence supports Humphrey's marrying Bogart. A close relationship of some form is likely. Okay? Now, William Du Bois' paternal great-grandfather was James Du Bois of Poughkeepsie, New York, an ethnic French-American of Huguenot origin who fathered several children with slave women. One of James' mixed-race sons was Alexander, who was born on Land Cay in Bahamas in 1803. Shout out to Bahamas. Beautiful place. In 1810, he immigrated to the United States with his father. Alexander Du Bois traveled and worked in Haiti, where he fathered his son Alfred with a mistress. Alfred returned to Connecticut, leaving Alfred in Haiti with his mother. Sometime before 1860, Alfred Du Bois immigrated to the United States, settling in Massachusetts. He married Mary Savina Bogart on February 5, 1867, in Houstonic, a village in Great Barrington. Alfred left Mary in 1870, 2 years after their son William was born. Mary Du Bois moved her son back to her parents' house in Great Barrington. They lived there until he was 5. She worked to support her family, receiving some assistance from her brother and neighbors, until she suffered a stroke in the early 1880s. She transcended in 1885. Great Barrington had a majority European American community who generally treated Du Bois well. He attended local integrated public school and played with white schoolmates. As an adult, he wrote about racism that he felt as a fatherless child and being a minority in the town. But teachers recognized his ability and encouraged his intellectual pursuits, and his rewarding experience with academic studies led him to believe that he could use his knowledge to empower African Americans. He graduated from the town's Sears High School and decided to attend college. The congregation of his childhood church, the First Congregational Church of Great Barrington, raised the money for his tuition. University education. Relying on this money donated by the neighbors, Du Bois attended Fisk University, a historically black college in Nashville, Tennessee, from 1885 to 1888. Shout out to the HBCUs. Like other Fisk students who relied on summer and intermittent teaching to support their university studies, Du Bois taught school during the summer of 1886 after sophomore year. His traveling residency in the South was Du Bois' first experience with Southern racism, which at the time encompassed Jim Crow laws, bigotry, suppression of black voting, and lynchings. The latter most reached a peak in the next decade. After receiving a bachelor's degree from Fisk, he attended Harvard College, which did not accept course credits from Fisk. From 1888 to 1890, where he was strongly influenced by Professor William James, prominent in American philosophy. Du Bois paid his way through 3 years at Harvard with money from summer jobs, inheritance, scholarships, and loans from friends. In 1890, Harvard awarded Du Bois his second bachelor's degree, cum laude, in history. In 1891, Du Bois received a scholarship to attend the sociology graduate school at Harvard. In 1892, Du Bois received a fellowship from the John F. Slater Fund for the Education of Freedom to attend the University of Berlin for graduate work. While a student in Berlin, he traveled extensively throughout Europe. He came of age intellectually in the German capital while studying with some of the nation's most prominent social scientists, including Gustav von Schlummer, Adolf Wagner, and Heinrich von Treitschke. Those are some prominent people. Look them up, y'all. He also met Max Weber, was highly impressed with Du Bois, and would later cite Du Bois as a counterexample to racist Allegheny, I think. Is it Allegheny or Allegheny? One of those. Alleging the inferiority of blacks. Weber would again meet Du Bois in 1904 on a visit to the U.S. just ahead of the publication of the seminal The Protestant Ethnic and the Spirit of Capitalism. He wrote about this time in Germany. I found myself on the outside of the American world looking in. With me were white folks, students, acquaintances, teachers who viewed the scene with me. They did not always pause to regard me as a curiosity or something subhuman. I was just a man of the somewhat privileged student rank with whom they were glad to meet and talk over the world, particularly the part of the world where I came from. After returning from Europe, Du Bois completed his graduate studies in 1885. He was an African American to earn a PhD. He was the first African American to earn a PhD from Harvard University. It's big, y'all. It's huge. In the summer of 1894, Du Bois received several job offers, including from the prestigious Tuskegee Institute. He accepted a teaching job at Wilberforce University in Ohio. At Wilberforce, Du Bois was strongly influenced by Alexander Crummell, who believed that the ideas and morals are necessary tools to affect social change. While at Wilberforce, Du Bois married Nina Gomer, one of his students, on May 12, 1896. Salute the Great Pill Podcast. Make sure you check out Great Pill Podcast on all social media platforms. All right, dope brother, dope content. Good to see you, brother. After 2 years at Wilberforce, Du Bois accepted a 1-year research job from the University of Pennsylvania as an assistant in sociology in the summer of 1896. He performed sociology field research in Philadelphia's African-American neighborhoods, which formed the foundation for his landmark study, The Philadelphia Negro, published in 1899, while he was teaching at Atlanta University. With DeMarcus, good to see you, bro. You know what I mean? Definitely, man. Support Marcus and everything he does on social media. Great moderator. Also, aspiring content creator. He's actually doing this thing as a content creator, too. Let me salute to you, bro. You know what I mean? I'm giving him a shout out. Yeah, yeah. It was the first case study of Black community in the United States. Among his Philadelphia consultants on the project was William Henry Dorsey, an artist who collected documents, paintings, and artifacts pertaining to Black history. Dorsey compiled hundreds of scrapbooks on the lives of Black people during the 18th century and built a collection that he laid out in his home in Philadelphia. The boy used the scrapbooks in his research. All right, everybody giving a shout out. I see y'all. You know what I'm saying? You know, Marcus letting them know where to find everybody at. Thank you, Marcus. In the 1890s, Philadelphia's Black neighborhoods had a negative reputation in terms of crime, poverty, and morality. Du Bois' book undermined the stereotypes with empirical evidence to shape his approach to segregation and its negative impact on Black lives and reputations. The results led him that racial integration was the key to democratic equality in American cities. Salute to Wally. Wally, good to come through. Definitely check out Wally Off Tour Productions. He also does stuff on JVJ Network. Great content creator, man. Cool brother. Always been supportive, man. Thank you, Wally, man. Appreciate you, brother. Much love. The methodology employed in the Philadelphia Negro, namely the description and the mapping of social characteristics onto neighborhood areas, was a forerunner to the studies under the Chicago School of Sociology. While taking part in the American Negro Academy in 1897, Du Bois presented a paper in which he rejected Frederick Douglass' plea for Black Americans to integrate into white society. Wow, that's big. He wrote, "We are Negroes, member of a vast historic race that from the very dawn of creation has slept, but half awakened in the dark forest of its African fatherland." Ooh, powerful words right there. No problem, brother. You're welcome. In the August 1897 issue of the Atlantic Monthly, Du Bois published Strivings of the Negro People, his first work aimed at the general public, in which he enlarged upon his thesis that African Americans should embrace their African heritage while contributing to American society. All right, so let's get into the NAACP era. That's when it gets real. All right. Now, in May 1909, Du Bois attended the National Negro Conference in New York. The meeting led to the creation of the National Negro Committee, chaired by Oswald Villard, and dedicated to campaigning for civil rights, equal voting rights, and equal education opportunities. The following spring in 1910, at the Second National Negro Conference, attendees created the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP, which I already know. You know what I'm saying? At Du Bois, suggesting the word color rather than Black was used to conclude dark-skinned people everywhere. Dozens of civil rights supporters, Black and white, participated in the founding, but most executive officers were white, including Mary Oliverton, Charles Edward Russell, William English Weller, and his first president, Moorfield Story. Feeling inspired by this Indian social reform and civil rights activist B.R. Abdakar, look him up, contacted Du Bois in the 1940s. In a letter to Du Bois in 1946, he introduced himself as a member of the Untouchables of India and a student of the Negro Problem, expressing interest in the NAACP's petition to the United States. You know that this group was thinking of following suit and requested copies of the proposed statement from Du Bois. In a later date of July 31st, 1946, Du Bois responded by telling Abdakar he was familiar with his name and that he had every sympathy with the Untouchables in India. Okay, all right. So he was working with people from India as well. I see you. Let's get into the crisis, all right? The NAACP leaders offered Du Bois a position of Director of Publicity and Research. He accepted the job in the summer of 1910 and moved to New York after resigning from Atlanta University. His primary duty was editing NAACP's monthly magazine, which he named The Crisis. The first issue appeared in November 1910, and Du Bois wrote that its aim was to set out those facts and arguments which show the danger of race prejudice practically as manifested today toward colored people. The journal was phenomenally successful, and the circulation would reach 100,000 in 1920. Wow, that's big. Typical articles in the early editions, polemics against the dishonesty and empiricalism of Black churches, the discussion of the Afrocentric origins of Egyptian civilization. Du Bois' African-centered views of ancient Egypt was in direct opposition to many Egyptologists of this day, including Flinders Petrie, whom Du Bois had met at a conference. In 1911, Du Bois' editorial helped initiate a nationwide push to induce the federal government to outlaw lynching. Wow. Du Bois, employing the sarcasm we frequently use, commented on the lynching in Pennsylvania. The point is he was Black. Blackness must be punished. Blackness is the crimes of crimes. It is therefore necessary, as every white scoundrel in the nation knows, to let slip no opportunity of punishing this crime of crimes. Of course it's possible. The pretext should be great and overwhelming. Some awful stunned crime made even more horrible by the reporter's imagination. Failing this, mere murder, arson, barn burner, or imprudence may do. The crisis carried Du Bois' editorial supporting the ideals of unionized labor, but denounced its leaders' racism. Blacks were barred from membership. Du Bois also supported the principles of the Socialist Party of America. He held party membership from 1910 to 1912, but he denounced the racism demonstrated by some racial socialist leaders. Frustrated by Republican President Taft's failure to address Washburn lynching, Du Bois endorsed Democratic candidate Woodrow Wilson. If you don't know who that is, look him up, do research. In 1912 presidential race, in exchange for Wilson promised to support Black causes. Throughout his writings, Du Bois supported women's rights and women's suffrage, but he found it difficult to publicly endorse the women's right to vote movement because leaders of the suffragism movement refused to support his fight against racial injustice. That's crazy. That is crazy. In 1913 crisis, editorial broached the taboo subject of interracial marriage. Although Du Bois generally expected persons to marry within the race, he viewed the problem as a women's rights issue because laws prohibited white men from marrying Black women. Du Bois wrote the anti-miscegenation laws. These are colored girls absolutely helpless for the lust of white men. It reduces colored women in the eyes of the law to the position of dogs. As low as a white girl falls, she can compel her seducer to marry her. We must delete anti-miscegenation laws, not because we are anxious to marry the white man's sisters, but because we are determined that white men will leave our sisters alone. Shit. Man. Wow. During 1915 and 1916, some leaders of the NAACP, disturbed by financial losses at the crisis and worried about the inflammatory rhetoric of some of his essays, attempted to oust Du Bois from his editorial position. Du Bois and his supporters prevailed, and he continued his role as editor. In a 1919 column entitled The True Brownies, he announced the creation of the Brownies Book, the first magazine published for African American children and youth, which he founded with Augustus Granville Dill and Jesse Redmond Foss. Okay? So let me get to the part where he's an historian and the author, okay? All right. The 1910s were a productive time for Du Bois. In 1911, he attended the first Universal Race Congress in London, and he published his first novel, The Quest of the Silver Fleece. 2 years later, Du Bois wrote, produced, and directed a pageant for the stage, The Star of Ethiopia. All right, Marcus giving a shout out showing you can find Wally. All right. In 1950, Du Bois published Negro, The General History of Black Africans, and the first of its kind in English. The book rebutted claims of African inferiority and will come to serve as the basis of much Afrocentric historiography in the 20th century. The Negro predicted unity and solidarity for colored people around the world and influenced many who supported the Pan-African movement. In 1915, the Atlantic Monthly carried Du Bois' essay, The African Roots of the War, which consolidated his ideas on capitalism, imperialism, and race. He argued that the scramble for Africa was at the root of World War I. He also anticipated later communist doctrine by suggesting that wealthy capitalists had pacified white workers by giving them just enough wealth to prevent them from revolting, by threatening them with competition by the low-cost labor of colored workers. Man, what's going on, Truth? What's good, brother? You know what I'm saying? Truth for Thursday is coming, y'all. All right, be ready. You know what I mean? Tap in. Definitely. What's good, brother? Blood in. Combating racism. Du Bois used an influential NAACP position to oppose a variety of racist incidents. When the silent film The Birth of a Nation premiered in 1915, Du Bois and the NAACP led the fight to ban the movie because of its racial portrayal of blacks as brutish and lustful. The fight was not successful and possibly contributed to the film's fame. But the publicity drew many new supporters to the NAACP. The private sector was not the only one source of racism. Under President Wilson, the plight of African Americans in government jobs suffered. Many federal agencies adopted whites-only employment practices. The Army excluded blacks from officer ranks, and the Immigration Service prohibited the immigration of persons of African ancestry. Du Bois wrote on editorial in 1914, deploring the dismissal of blacks from federal posts. He supported William Monroe Trotter, who Trotter brusquely confronted Wilson about the president's failure to fulfill his campaign promise of justice for blacks. Man. The crisis continued to wage a campaign against lynching. In 1950, it published an article with the year-by-year tabulation of 2,732 lynchings from 1884 to 1914. The April 1916 edition covered the group lynching of six African Americans in Lee County, Georgia. Later in 1916, the Waco Horror article covered the lynching of Jesse Washington, a mentally impaired 17-year-old African American. The article broke new ground by utilizing undercover reporting to expose the conduct of local whites in Waco, Texas. That's wild, man. The early 20th century was the era of the great migration of blacks from the southern United States to the northeast, midwest, and west. Du Bois wrote an editorial supporting the Great Migration because he felt it would help blacks escape southern racism, find economic opportunities, and assimilate to American society. Also in the 1910s, the American eugenics movement was in its infancy, and many leading eugenics were openly racist, defining blacks as a lower race. Wow. Du Bois opposed this view as an unscientific aberration, but still maintained the basic principles of eugenics, that different persons have different inborn characteristics that make them more or less suited for specific kinds of employment, and that by encouraging most talented members of all races to procreate will be better the stocks of humanity. That's really radical right there. Yeah. Okay, let's get into World War I and what he was doing during that time. As the United States prepared to enter World War I in 1917, Du Bois' colleague in the NAACP, Joe Spargan, established a camp to train African Americans to serve as officers in the United States Armed Forces. The camp was controversial because some whites felt that blacks were not qualified to be officers, and some blacks felt that African Americans should not participate in what they considered a white man's war. Du Bois supported Spargan's training camp, but was disappointed when the Army forced him to retire one of his few black officers, Charles Young, on the pretense of ill health. The Army agreed to create 1,000 officer positions for blacks, but instead, that 250 come from enlisted men, conditioned to taking orders from whites rather than from independent-minded blacks who came from the camp. Salute to Cornhusker, Miss Nebraska. What's going on? Salute, Cornhusker. Thank you for hitting that like button, sister. Appreciate you. Much love. Over 700,000 blacks enlisted on the first day of the draft were subject to discriminatory conditions which prompted vocal protests from Du Bois. After the East St. Louis riots occurred in the summer of 1917, Du Bois traveled to St. Louis to report on the riots. Between 40 and 250 African Americans were massacred by whites, primarily due to resentment caused by St. Louis industry hiring blacks to replace striking white workers. Wow. Du Bois reported resulted in an article, The Massacre of East St. Louis, published in the September issue of The Crisis, which contained photographs, and interviews detailing the violence. Historian David Lerman Lewis concluded that Du Bois distorted some of the facts in order to increase the propaganda value of the article. To publicly demonstrate the black community's outrage over the riots, Du Bois organized the Silent Parade, a march of around 90,000 African Americans on New York City's Fifth Avenue, the first parade of its kind in New York, and the second instance of blacks publicly demonstrating for civil rights. Wow. Ooh, this is a lot, man. The Houston riot of 1917 disturbed Du Bois and was a major setback to efforts to permit African Americans to become military officers. The riots began after Houston police arrested and beat 2 black officers. In response, over 100 black soldiers took to the streets of Houston and killed 16 whites. A military court-martial was held, and 19 of the soldiers were hanged, and 67 others were imprisoned. Wow. Despite the Houston riots, Du Bois and others successfully pressed the Army to accept the officers trained at Spring Gist Camp, resulting in over 600 black officers joining the Army in October 1917. Federal officers concerned about subversive viewpoints expressed by the NAACP leaders attempted to frighten the NAACP by threatening it with investigations. Du Bois was not intimidated. In the 1918, he predicted that World War I would lead to the overthrow of the European colonial system and to the liberation of colored people worldwide, in China and India, and especially in the Americas. NAACP chairman Joe Spargan was enthusiastic about the war, and he persuaded Du Bois to consider an officer's commission in the Army, contingent on Du Bois writing an editorial repudiating his anti-war stance. Du Bois accepted this bargain and wrote the pro-war close ranks editorial in June 1918, and soon thereafter he received the commission in the Army. Many black leaders who wanted to leverage the war to gain civil rights for African Americans criticized Du Bois for his sudden reversal. Southern officers in Du Bois' unit objected to the presence, and his commission was withdrawn. Man. Ooh, so let's get into after the war, right? So, man, wow, this is a lot. This is a lot. All right. So now, after the war, right, he traveled to Europe, right, to the Pan African Congress. You know what I mean? Did that. You know what I mean? He got that done. Then after that, now I'm gonna get into. So after what he was still doing a lot of activism, a lot of social movements with the Pan African movement. But now let's get to it with him and Marcus Garvey and the Pan African movement. All right. The boys traveled to Europe in 1921 to attend the Second Pan African Congress. The assembled black leaders from around the world issued a London resolution to establish a Pan African Association headquarters in Paris. Under the boys' guidance, the resolution insisted on racial equality and that Africa be ruled by Africans, not as in the 1919 Congress with the consent of Africans. The boys restated the resolution of the Congress in a manifesto to the League of Nations, which implored the newly formed League of Nations to address labor issues and to appoint Africans to key posts. The League took little action on the request. Another important African-American leader of the 1920s was Marcus Garvey. He definitely was, all right? And he might be covered on Black is Gold. Stay tuned. Promoter of the Back to Africa movement and founder of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. Garvey denounced the boys' efforts to achieve equality through integration and endorsed racial separation. The boys initially supported the concept of Garvey's Black Star Line, a shipping company that was intended to facilitate commerce with the African diaspora. But the boys later became concerned that Garvey was threatening the NAACP efforts, leading the boys to describe him as fraudulent and reckless. Responding to Garvey's slogan, Africa for the Africans, the boys said that he supported that concept, but denounced Garvey's intention that Africa be ruled by African Americans. Whoa. The boy wrote a series of articles in the crisis between 1922 and 1924 attacking Garvey's movement, calling him the most dangerous enemy of the Negro race in America and the world. Dang. The boy and Garvey never made a serious attempt to collaborate, and the dispute was partly rooted in the desire of the respective organizations, NAACP and UNAI, to capture a larger portion of the available philanthropic funding. The boy decreed Harvard's decision to ban blacks from his dormitories in 1921 as an instance of a broad effort in the U.S. to renew the Anglo-Saxon cult, the worship of the Nordic totem, the disenfranchisement of Negro, Jew, Irishman, Italian, Hungarian, Asiatic, and South Sea Islander, the world rule of Nordic white through brute force. When the boys set for Europe in 1923 for the Third Pan-African Congress, the circulation of the crisis had declined to 60,000 from its World War I high of 100,000, but it remained the preeminent periodical of the civil rights movement. President Calvin Coolidge, if you don't know who that is, do your research, designated Du Bois as extraordinary to Liberia. And after the Third Congress concluded, the boys rode a German freighter from Canary Islands, Africa, visiting Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Senegal. Okay. All right. So I'm going to get into the Harlem Renaissance, right? And that's about it. The Harlem Renaissance is the last thing I'm going to cover. Okay? Now, y'all know he was a socialite. He had several debates. One was with Lathrop Studart, okay? Lathrop Studart, okay? Definitely do your research on that. All right, but let's get into the Harlem Renaissance. It's the last thing I'm going to cover, y'all. I get up out of here. Du Bois frequently promoted African-American artistic creativity in his writings. And when the Harlem Renaissance, definitely do your research on that, emerged in the mid-1920s, his article, A Negro Art Renaissance, celebrated the end of the long hiatus of blacks from creative endeavors. The enthusiasm for the Harlem Renaissance waned as he came to believe that many whites visited Harlem for voyeurism, not for genuine appreciation of black art. Du Bois insisted that artists recognize their moral responsibilities, writing that a black artist is first of all a black artist. He was also concerned that black artists were not using their art to promote black causes, saying, "I do not care a damn for any art that is not used for propaganda." By the end of 1926, he stopped employing the crisis to support the arts. Wow. So, man, W.B. Du Bois, man. Yeah, a lot of controversial views, but I think overall he really was trying to help our people to have a place here in society, man. That's what he really wanted overall. He wanted us to be looked at as human. You know what I mean? No matter what, he was really striving for that, and I respect him for that. amongst everything that was going on. That's what he was truly fighting for. And I think all of us need to fight for things that we really believe that can be achieved, even if at times other people don't believe in it. And yeah, Great Pill, that is a lot, for real. You know what I'm saying? And when you have a vision to do something, sometimes you're not gonna get supported. So there was people that supported him, there's people that didn't support him, right? That's gonna happen in life. Nothing you can do about that, y'all. Ain't nothing you can do about that. Okay? You're gonna have supporters, you're gonna have people that don't support. You're gonna have people that love what you're doing, and you're gonna have people that hate what you do. Your goal is just to stay focused on what you're doing. And W.E. Du Bois said that. He stayed focused on his goal. I don't agree with all of his views. I don't agree with all of his sentiments. I don't agree with everything that he stood for. The one thing I do agree upon is that he wanted best for our people. You know what I'm saying? He wanted better for our people. And that's what Black and Gold is about. Black and Gold is about people who I think at heart really want the best for our people. Maybe their tactics are wrong. Maybe sometimes their views on life is a little skewed or a little off, right? Even when it comes to us. But I believe these people really want the best for our people. You know what I mean? I really do. For the most part, I believe they do. Now that, like I said, there are ways or the strategy to go about it. Like I said, maybe indifferent for some of us, right? Some of us may agree, may not agree. That being said, y'all, this is Black is Gold episode 8, W.E.B. Du Bois. All right. That, you know what I mean? As always, as our Heavenly Sister in the stream says, QB, be intentional. I'm going to be intentional today of relaxing and getting some rest because it's an off day. Okay? You know what I mean? I'm only on here for this. I'm definitely going to relax. I'm going to take care of what I need to take care of, and I'm going to chill out today, y'all, all right? With that being said, family, you know what I mean? Much love to all of y'all. Definitely. Y'all know what time it is, man. You know what I mean? Keep yourselves going, man. Keep yourselves motivated. And definitely do not give up on whatever vision that you have, even if other people don't believe in it. With that being said, y'all, I am out. Peace.
The DJ.